theory that goes something like it's too early to judge Julen Lopetegui at the moment. He's in the infancy of his West Ham career. It's going to take him a while to implement his ideas. I agree with some of that. I think it's too early to judge him and say, right, that's it, he should be out of a job. I do believe that. That I do believe would be too hurried. However, to suggest that it's so early in his stewardship of West Ham that we can't expect any changes or any implementation of his footballing philosophy to have happened yet, I disagree with that completely. For a number of reasons. I mean, one of them, the obvious one, would be that there are head coaches, managers who have been in their jobs, just started this season. You're already starting to see their identity. I think that would certainly be one of them. I think the other thing is, even if we don't see the full concept, the full finished product of what he's trying to do right now, we would see clues. We would see what he was trying to get towards. And I have to be honest, when you look at Lopetegui, we're not seeing we're seeing a higher line. That much is true. We're seeing some differences, but we're not seeing anything that's drastically different to what David Moyes was doing. And I think that's another reason why when you look at him and think, oh, he needs to implement his style and a brand new style, I don't think he is trying to implement a whole brand new style. I think we're seeing tweaks and slight differences, nuanced differences, let's say, aside from the high line and what David Moyes was doing. So realistically, it shouldn't take him that long to do whatever he wants to do, whatever his final vision is. Also, it was interesting watching Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur yesterday, because Ange Postecoglou's come in for a little bit of stick, quite a lot of stick, actually, particularly this season. I'm sure he'll be getting a lot less now, but it made me think about when he first arrived at Tottenham. And nobody was under any illusions what he was trying to do. His identity was evident after day one. Now, I cast your mind back, just before he played his first competitive game, we played them. I think it might have even been Australia. West Ham played them in a pre-season friendly, and every time that we tried to attack their defence, they were horrendous. But during the course of pre-season, Postecoglou, and some may argue that he's terrible defensively still, but Postecoglou managed to implement his style well enough in pre-season. By the time the first game came around, they were there. A lot of his ethos was stamped all across the team. So for that reason, I think to suggest Lopetegui all needs even more time to stamp his style and stamp his methods on the team. I think if you're going to argue that, you would also have to concede, he's quite slow at doing that then, isn't he? Because compared to the others, everyone else has sort of done it quicker, haven't they? Now, I'm not here to lay the boot into Lopetegui, sort of far from it. I think, looking at it, I think there's a certain level of sort of pragmatism that's needed at the moment, because sometimes some of the best teams, and indeed some of the best tactics, are sort of built by accident. Could go back, I think the first time I ever really noticed it happen was, I think it was the 1990 World Cup under Bobby Robson. The team that finished up and got to the semi-finals, which was a really, really good team, wasn't the team that started it. The team evolved over the course of the tournament. You'll have seen this numerous times with any international teams. It happens over tournaments, but by the end of it, I think England ended up playing 3-5-2. That certainly wasn't the intention going into the tournament. Far from it. I think Bobby Robson, with the help of his players and a bit of trial and error, stumbled across a system and a starting 11 which worked for him. And I think the thing is to admit, actually, what I wanted to do is probably not working, so something different is going to be required here. And I do wonder if we're going to see a little bit of that with Julen Lopetegui now, because we'll never know what he thought when he knew he was going to take the West Ham job, but he would have had an idea what his first team might be. He probably knew that Areola was going to be his goalkeeper. He probably knew he needed a new right back. He knew that he wanted to get rid of both central defenders, bring some new central defenders in, but he probably thought, and I'm guessing here, I don't know, I'm making this stuff up, right? But I'm just trying to highlight the point that he's really going to have to change his thinking, and I think it may well be close to happening. He probably would have thought Emerson's going to really work out for me. He probably thought He tried to buy Alex Garcia. Was one of the first thing he tried to do when he came into the club. So he clearly thought, I need to change something in central midfield. Wanted to keep Alvarez. But I would imagine his imagined first team for West Ham probably did involve a new central defensive partner for Edson Alvarez, probably Lucas Paquetá, Bowen and Kudus on the flanks, a new striker, 2 new centre-backs. You get where I'm going with this. And I think where he's at now, he's probably going to have to reassess exactly what he thought. And that's okay, because that's just pragmatism. And I think sometimes he's maybe looking at his back four now thinking, right, okay, I'm going to have to do this. Maybe Emerson's not the guy. I know I spoke about it yesterday. I'm not going to labour the point on that. Maybe Paqueta's not the guy. Maybe I can't. He's been poor, let's be fair. And maybe, just maybe, and it's not me saying this, I'm just looking at what we're seeing from Lopetegui already. Maybe he's now thinking, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Kudus there. I'm not sure that his initial idea was going to work, which played Kudus on the left side of midfield. It's not working. He was a goal machine last season, Kudus. Contributed in goals and build-up play and solo goals. We're seeing none of it. None of it. There is no doubt about it. Kudus's impact this season has been lessened by whatever Lopetegui's trying to do. Well, again, he's going to have to be a pragmatist here, and he's going to have to start looking at this and thinking, well, okay, that's not worked. So his initial concept of a team is probably changed quite drastically. Probably what he wants to do up front, I don't know, might have changed drastically. He's probably looking, thinking, I can't move Bowen, he's the captain, he's the mainstay of the team. But the composition at fullback, the composition of the midfield, certainly the attacking midfield, may well be vastly different, because it could well be that in the next 2 or 3 games, Paquetá and Kudus aren't starting. And I think what this is doing now is this is going to afford him the opportunity to live or die by what he's about to do. Because I don't think you get away with a loss against Ipswich. I really don't. Will he get sacked immediately afterwards? Possibly not, but the pressure upon him would be so huge that he's got to really believe in whatever he's trying to do. And I think for the first time, West Ham, Lopetegui, is going to have to really start trying to work out what his starting 11 is. I think he's probably going to have to stick to it. Because to go back to that Manchester United game and against Tottenham, a lot of the complaints I hear about Manchester United is they're not really seeing Ten Hag's vision, despite the fact that he's got lots of Dutch players in there, and he's been able to raid his old club Ajax and all that type of thing. People aren't seeing this strategy, this philosophy. But again, you look at Ange Postecoglou, and yes, he gets a lot of criticism, but they really do have a clear identity, don't they? A very, very clear identity. And what you've got with a team like that is you have structure to the team. It may seem absolutely chaotic sometimes with Tottenham, but there's a structure to the attack. Maybe not the defence, but there's a structure to the attack. There are patterns of play. Basically, stuff that you can see has been worked on the training ground. I get none of that with West Ham. None of it. And I find that understandable, actually, because that first team is chopping and changing. Remember one of Lopetegui's earlier interviews, which was with the in-house West Ham media team, and he was talking about the players are responding well to his methods. And I didn't give it too much thought, but I have wondered recently what exactly that meant, because is that just a high line or is that training methods? Because actually in terms of the attacking play, I'm not seeing any real patterns of play. I'm not seeing an awful lot happening with any consistency. You see glimpses of it, particularly with the fullbacks and some of the positions. Sometimes you see our certain players are sort of tucked in a little bit narrower than you would normally expect them to be, but not on a consistent match-by-match basis. And if it is there, then it's very subtle and it's very nuanced. What is not screaming at you is identity. And I think that got to come with a settled team, because you can only really build patterns of play and real structure by drilling habits into people. And that's only really going to happen by people getting used to playing alongside their teammates. Jean-Claire Todibo's comments were quite telling. He said he really enjoyed playing next to Max Kilman. Brilliant. I was pleased to hear it. Really, really good. But he needs to carry on playing next to Max Kilman. That's what needs to happen. And I think out of anything and everything else, Lopetegui's going to need to start getting some structure. He needs to get a settled team here. I think that's the only way we're going to see this improvement. Going back to the start of the video, this theory, this concept that Lopetegui needs to implement his style of play. He's not had long with the players. There's a lot of new players. Well, I mean, that's the case with a lot of the clubs. That's the case with Brighton. That's the case with Chelsea. I mean, there's been a lot of clubs who've had a massive overhaul. There's no doubt about it. But they seem to have implemented their ideas a little bit quicker, just like Tottenham did at the start of last season. And I think if that's going to happen, and I don't want to talk about, I don't want to talk about overly about Lopetegui supporters or people that don't support Lopetegui, because then we get to a Lopetegui in, Lopetegui out scenario. And I think it's ridiculous. He has only been here for 5 minutes. And he does deserve a chance. But you've got to show he's baking a cake, all right? But we don't expect to see the hundreds and thousands of icing put on at the moment. We would like to see the eggs being mixed with the sugar and the flour. Do you know what I mean? And I think at the moment we're not really seeing that even the very basic ingredients are coming together on that. Needs a settled lineup. It's not going to do him any favours, this international break coming up. It's really not. Because even if he was going to do what I suggested yesterday, I wasn't what I suggested, it wasn't my idea, it was bloody Lopetegui's idea. But if we are to believe that quite possibly Mavropanos might play a few games at right back, well, he's going to go away with Greece, I'm guessing. Todibo. Well, I guess the best thing he can do is work with Todibo and Kilman as central defensive partnership. He can do that, but he's not going to have a lot of his first team players there, which is a bit of a shame. But they have had this whole concept, this whole excuse, and it is an excuse. Excuse has become a dirty word. There's nothing wrong with the word excuse. It's basically mitigation. A lot of the mitigation offered up is he's not had a long time with the players. We got our business done early. We really did. We had signed pretty much everyone, apart from, you could argue, Soler, Rodriguez. Most of the signings, I'm pretty sure 7 of those 9 signings were all signed before the first match had been played. A lot of them are on pre-season. A lot of this stuff we've had, we should be seeing little glimmers of something about to happen. And I'm hopeful that we will. I mean, he has to do it now. I've certainly not got the appetite and not got the stomach for another manager out season. I really don't, because it'll mean things are really bad. It'll be quite a depressive season. So I'm willing him to do well. I'm willing him to work out. And I've got... My respect for him grew last week, it has to be said, just because I felt there was so much negativity from the mainstream media towards him. It's clear he's not liked. He's done nothing wrong. He's just not David Moyes, as I mentioned. I felt there were very much 2 articles attributed to Tim Stuyton, which threw Lopetegui under the bus. And then you had the constant speculation that he only had a couple, 3 games left or whatever it was. I think he came through it really well. So, whatever was going on that training ground, the training ground seemed to be a happy place. And the team responded really well to going behind in the first minute against Brentford. Really, really well. That shows a level of team spirit. It shows a level of resilience. And after that, West Ham only conceded 2 more shots. After that initial goal, 2 more shots on... No, not just 2 more shots on target, basically. Areola had 2 saves to make. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You could have blamed, bearing in mind the pressure that there's been, pressure on the manager, pressure on the team, everyone calling defence crap. It had been crap. Let's be fair. It had been crap. 5 goals conceded against Liverpool, 3 goals conceded against Chelsea. That's crap, okay? A lot of pressure on them. So to concede early on, you can understand how they would have capitulated. Fair play to them, honestly. I think there was a lot to admire, and so I've not given up on Lopetegui yet. I don't... Is it entertaining football? No, it's not. But I think my criticism now is I need to see what he's going to do. I need to see what his plan is. What's he trying to do? Because the people that are supporting him and been very supportive of him, they're saying that the stuff is coming. Be patient. And Lopetegui said, give me till May. He's not going to get till May. But be patient. Wait for this new style to come. We're going to need to see that it is arriving. I think for him to give his best chance of him implementing whatever this new ethos, whatever this new West Ham might be. And I'm not convinced that, I have to say this, I'm not convinced that we're going to see this metamorphosis. I'm really not. The more I see, the more I think this is actually going to be quite close to what David Moyes is doing. But at the moment, if we can shore up the defence will be better than last season because it was a record number of goals conceded. But he needs to get a settled team. And I think he's going to have to start by getting settled centre-backs in position and training them and drilling them, a settled central midfield and a settled attack, because it's just all up in the air at the moment. And nobody knows. Nobody knows. Myself and Gio, we do our previews. We talk about the team that we'd like to see. We always used to do the previews and talk about the team that we would play rather than what David Moyes would pick. And whilst we said something different and we'd always have our own players in there, we could all pretty much always predict what David Moyes was going to do. And I guess there was a criticism to that. I think for a little while, we probably need to start being able to predict what Lopetegui is going to do just to get that cohesion, get that familiarity between those players. Anyway, I've been waffling on 15 minutes now. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.